Hi, I'm Cole.
And I'm Grace. Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise and get straight to the fascinating core of big ideas.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're diving into the mind of someone whose name, well, you hear it everywhere in computing, Alan Turing.
Right, almost synonymous with the field.
But the full story, the actual depth of what he did, it often gets a bit lost. People know Enigma codebreaker, maybe from films.
The pop culture version?
But he was so much more, a real visionary. He fundamentally changed how we think about intelligence, machines, even life itself.
That's absolutely spot on. When you talk foundational figures in computer science and AI, Alan Turing isn't just on the list. For so many key ideas, he practically is the list.
Really? That fundamental?
Oh, absolutely. His theoretical insights, they didn't just, lay some groundwork. They established principles that echo everywhere today. From the algorithms on your phone to the big questions about machine minds, even how biological patterns form.
Wow.
So yeah, this deep dive, we want to go beyond that pop culture story, really dig into the impact of his ideas, the nuances of his life that often get overlooked. We'll definitely be exploring his huge 1950 paper, Computing Machinery and Intelligence.
That's the one with the Turing Test, right?
That's the one. Introduced the Turing Test
Yeah.
and really kicked off the whole conversation about defining machine intelligence. It's crucial.
So that's our mission today. Let's unpack Turing's key papers, the big conceptual leaps he made, and figure out why his work is still shaping everything, machines, intelligence, life, decades, even centuries later.
And we'll put it in context too. The early days of computing, that whole post-war research boom.
Exactly. And show why that Turing test, even with all the debate, still matters so much when we talk about AI and consciousness, which feels more urgent than ever.
Definitely.
All right, let's dive deep into the enigmatic world of Alan Turing. Alan Turing, the man and his unconventional mind. Okay, so let's start with the man himself. Alan Matheson Turing, born June 23, 1912, London. And from the get-go, it seems like he wasn't exactly cut out for a conventional path. Think about his time at Sherborne School. He went there in 1926.
Prestigious school.
Very. But the curriculum was all about the classics. Latin, Greek, history, you know the type.
Very traditional.
But Turing, his mind was already buzzing with science. He just couldn't help it. He was doing experiments, tackling maths problems on his own time, completely outside the syllabus.
That really shows that innate drive, doesn't it? That self-directed curiosity.
Oh.
He wasn't just following instructions.
Exactly. And his personality. Oh, it made him stand out, didn't it? And maybe not always in a good way for him back then.
No, by all accounts, his school years were often pretty unhappy. He had these notoriously untidy habits, apparently.
Huh. Sounds familiar for some deep thinkers.
Maybe. And he was described as shy, hesitant, with this quite distinct high-pitched voice. Could come across as a bit of an antisocial loner.
So not fitting the mold of the classic public school boy.
Not at all. But those traits, they were probably linked to his unique way of thinking. That ability to just think deeply, go right back to first principles, ignore assumptions.
He wasn't just learning maths, he was kind of rebuilding it for himself.
Precisely. Sometimes finding the right answers through really unconventional routes. And that raw intellectual power it shone through led him to King's College, Cambridge,
Right.
and then later a PhD from Princeton in '38. His dissertation, Systems of Logic Based on Ordinals, that's heavy stuff, deep mathematical logic.
So he had this incredibly rigorous foundation even before the war changed everything.
Exactly. And that foundation was absolutely crucial for what came next.
And what came next was huge.
Yeah.
Just after that PhD, his brain power was needed urgently. In 1938, he gets recruited by the government code and cipher school.
Even before the war officially started, they knew they needed minds like his.
And then he reports to Bletchley Park, now legendary, of course, September 4th, 1939, literally the day after Britain declared war. Talk about timing.
Right into the fire.
He gets assigned straight to the Enigma section, working under Dilly Knox, a big name in British cryptanalysis.
A very sharp mind himself.
And Knox apparently said Turing was producing a stream of ideas. It sounds like the perfect place for that unconventional mind, really. A place where pure brain power was everything.
It was.
Yeah.
But the challenge they faced with Enigma,
Yeah.
it was just staggering.
Explain that a bit. What made Enigma so tough?
Well, it was this electromechanical machine the German military used. Rotors, wires, plug boards. The complexity was immense.
How complex?
The number of possible daily settings was 158 quintillion. That's 158 with 18 zeros after it.
Wow. Okay, that's a big number.
It's astronomical. Try every single combination, brute forcing it, absolutely impossible. Forget it. Even with a hypothetical superfast machine, it would take millions of years.
And they change the settings daily.
Every single day. So you couldn't just solve it once. It was a constantly moving target. Turing's genius, and importantly, building on earlier crucial work, was finding a mathematical way to essentially neutralize the effect of the plug board.
The plug board. What was that?
It was this extra layer of scrambling cross-wiring connections. It massively increased the number of possible settings. Turing figured out mathematically how to kind of cancel out its complexity before tackling the rotors.
Ah, okay, so simplifying the problem first.
Exactly. It was a huge insight. It cut down the number of combinations they needed to check from that impossible 158 quintillion to something more like, well, still a massive 1 trillion.
Still sounds pretty big.
It is,
Yeah.
but it was manageable. Manageable with the help of these electromechanical machines called bombs.
The bomb machines, like in the movie?
Sort of, yes. Though the real ones were different. They designed several of these, operating together, to churn through the remaining possibilities based on Turing's methods.
And they could crack the daily codes.
Within hours, usually, which is just incredible. And the impact. Historians estimate it shortened the war by maybe 2 years, saved countless lives, changed everything.
That's incredible. But, okay, here's where it gets a bit more complex, right? The popular story often paints Turing as the guy who cracked Enigma, single-handedly almost.
Right. The lone genius narrative.
But the reality is more nuanced. There's this important perspective that his role is often greatly exaggerated at the expense of the field's pioneers.
That's a really crucial point to make. Because it's true. We absolutely have to talk about the Polish mathematicians. Marian Rajkowski, Jerzy Rucci, Henryk Stygalski.
They were working on Enigma before Turing.
Way before. They had actually broken early versions of Enigma back in the early 1930s. And they developed their own decryption machine, which they called the Bomba.
So the name even came from them.
Yes. And critically, just weeks before Germany invaded Poland in 1939, they shared everything they knew, their methods, their Bomba designs, with British and French intelligence.
Wow, that must have been absolutely vital.
It was game-changing. So Turing's brilliance was undeniable. But his contribution was more about taking that incredible Polish groundwork and, well, industrializing it. Scaling it up for the sheer volume of wartime messages, refining the techniques, designing more powerful bombs to handle later, more complex versions of Enigma.
So it doesn't diminish Turing's importance, but it places it in context. It was a team effort, building on earlier breakthroughs.
Exactly. Science is almost always like that. Collaborative, iterative. Standing on the shoulders of giants, as they say. The single superhero narrative is just simpler for storytelling, but it's rarely the whole truth.
And Turing worked on other codes too, right? Not just Enigma.
Oh, yes. He made major contributions to breaking the Lorenz cipher, which the Germans used for high-level communications. Much more complex than Enigma. The British called it FISH.
Fish, okay.
He developed a statistical approach for it, nicknamed Turingery at Bletchley. And while he didn't build the Colossus computers that eventually automated cracking Lorenz,
The first electronic computers, essentially.
yeah, some argue that yes. His theoretical work and discussions with people like Max Neumann were absolutely fundamental to their design. And his influence went overseas, too. He went to the U.S. in late '42
What for?
to help the Americans with their own bomb efforts, make them faster, and also worked on secure voice communication systems at Bell Labs. His reach was really quite global.
So after all this incredible secret wartime work, he does get some recognition, an OBE in 1946. Officer of the Order of the British Empire.
Right, for his wartime service. A significant honor, though maybe understated given the impact.
Definitely understated. But then, his post-war life takes this just awful, tragic turn.
It's absolutely heartbreaking and deeply unjust. It all came crashing down in 1952. He was arrested.
Arrested for what?
For gross indecency, which, under the laws at the time, meant homosexual acts. His relationship with another man became known to the police, and because it was illegal...
Illegal in Britain until 1967, right?
That's right. So he was convicted
Yeah.
and faced a terrible choice. Prison, or submitting to what they call chemical castration.
Which was? What exactly?
It was hormone treatment. Forced injections of synthetic estrogen, DES, dithylstilbestrol, designed to suppress libido.
That sounds barbaric.
It was. Horrific physical side effects, immense psychological damage, and on top of that personal violation, the conviction meant he lost his security clearance immediately.
So he couldn't work for GCHQ, the government's code-breaking agency, anymore.
Nope. Effectively cut off from the intelligence work he'd been so central to, isolated professionally. It's just a brutal example of how societal prejudice can destroy brilliant lives, silencing someone right at their creative peak.
And then, just 2 years later, June 1954, he's found dead. Cyanide poisoning.
Yes, the official verdict was suicide.
But there's some debate about that.
There is. Some historians, even his mother, wondered if it could have been accidental. He did conduct chemistry experiments at home, sometimes carelessly. We'll likely never know for sure.
But either way, it was a tragedy. He was only 41 and still doing incredible work, especially in mathematical biology, which we need to get to.
Absolutely. The world lost so much potential.
Thankfully, there's been a real effort in recent times to, well, to try and right that historical wrong.
Yes, thankfully. Though obviously far too late for Turing himself. Gordon Brown, when he was prime minister in 2009, gave this really powerful official apology from the government, called the treatment utterly unfair.
That must have meant a lot.
It did. And then in 2013, a posthumous royal pardon from the Queen, which was pretty much unprecedented.
Acknowledging the injustice.
Exactly. And it didn't stop there. In 2016, they passed what's often called Turing's Law.
What did that do?
It extended pardons automatically to thousands of other men who'd been convicted under those same discriminatory laws, most of them long dead, a broader act of restitution.
That's significant.
It is. And now you see his face on the new 50-pound note, which is a huge symbol of his rehabilitation in the public eye.
Is there a quote on it?
Yes, a really poignant one. This is only a foretaste of what is to come, and only the shadow of what is going to be. Speaks volumes about his vision, doesn't it?
Wow, it really does. And figures like Benedict Cumberbatch, who played him, and others have really championed his cause, too.
They have, highlighting the ongoing fight against discrimination that his story represents. 2. Laying the groundwork, the Turing machine, and the nature of computation.
Okay, let's shift gears now. From the personal life, the tragedy, to the monumental ideas that literally built our digital world. Let's talk about the Turing machine.
Right, a concept that sounds abstract, but its impact is incredibly concrete.
To really get it, we need to go back even before Turing, right? To the turn of the 20th century, 1900, David Hilbert.
The great German mathematician, Hilbert, and his famous Entscheidungsproblem.
The decision problem. What was he asking exactly?
He was asking something profound. Could there be, in principle, a definite mechanical procedure, an algorithm, that could take any mathematical statement and tell you yes or no, whether it's true or false?
Like a universal truth machine for maths.
Essentially, yes. Could all of mathematics be automated, reduced to a deterministic process? It was this grand dream of finding a perfect, provable foundation for all logic.
A huge question.
Massive. And it came at a time when mathematicians were really grappling with the foundations of their field. Paradoxes were popping up. They needed solid ground.
So the challenge wasn't just Hilbert's problem, but defining what mechanical procedure or computable even meant.
Exactly. What does it mean for something to be calculable? Before Turing, there wasn't a precise, agreed-upon definition. Other giants were working on it too, like Alonzo Church with his lambda calculus.
Another way of formalizing computation.
Right, and Kurt Gödel, whose incompleteness theorems had already shown there were fundamental limits to what formal systems could prove. The stage was set. Everyone was asking, what is computation?
And then Turing comes along in 1936.
With his paper on computable numbers, with an application to the Entscheidungsproblem. And he introduces his theoretical machine. He called it an A machine for automatic.
But we know it as the Turing machine. Describe it for us. What is this abstract machine?
It's deceptively simple. Imagine an infinitely long tape, like a roll of paper, divided into cells.
Infinite.
Conceptually infinite, yeah. Each cell can hold a symbol, maybe just a 0 or a 1, or be blank. Then there's a head that sits over one cell at a time.
What does the head do?
3 things. Read the symbol in the cell, write a new symbol, or erase it. And you can move one step left or right along the tape.
Okay.
The machine also has a finite number of internal states. Think of it like the machine's current mode or instruction. Turing cleverly said it replaced the state of mind of a human doing a calculation.
Ah.
And finally, there's a list of instructions, a program. Based on the machine's current state and the symbol it reads, the instructions tell it what to do. Change the symbol, move the head, change its state.
That's it. That sounds almost too simple.
That's the genius of it. It's minimalism.
Mm-hmm.
He showed that this simple setup could calculate the digits of any computable number.
So what was the big philosophical leap? Why was this simple tape-and-head thing so revolutionary? It wasn't even a real machine yet.
The revolution wasn't just that it could compute things. It was Turing's argument, which he backed up mathematically, that anything that could be effectively computed by any conceivable mechanical process
Yeah.
could be computed by this simple machine.
Anything.
Essentially, yes. If you can break down a calculation into a finite set of unambiguous steps, a Turing machine can do it. This established the idea of Turing completeness,
Meaning?
meaning if any system, a programming language, another machine, whatever, can simulate a Turing machine, it's theoretically capable of performing any computation that any computer can. It defined the universal boundary of computation. And then he went even further. He conceived of the universal Turing machine, the UTM.
Okay.
Imagine one specific Turing machine. Its genius is that you can feed it, on its tape, a description, the instruction table of any other Turing machine.
Like loading software.
It's exactly like loading software. The UTM reads the description and then simulates the behavior of the machine described. It's a single machine that can be programmed to act like any other machine.
Whoa. Okay, that sounds like the blueprint for, well, for computers as we know them.
Precisely. It's a fundamental theoretical idea behind the stored program computer. Before this, computers were often built for one specific task. The UTM showed you could have one flexible machine performing any task just by changing the program on its tape. That's the birth of software, conceptually.
That is mind-blowing, that such a simple model could capture all of computation, and a universal version could run any program. No wonder it's seen as the breakthrough for stored program computers.
Absolutely. And we saw it become practical pretty quickly after the war. The Manchester baby computer in 1948, the first electronic stored program machine, Turing actually wrote some early programs for it. His theory became reality.
So his ideas weren't just abstract theory, he was involved in making them work physically.
Yes, and all this leads to what we now call the Church-Turing thesis.
Which says?
It's not a theorem you can prove, more like a foundational principle. It states that Turing machines, Church's lambda calculus, and similar formalisms all capture the same intuitive idea of what an effective method or an algorithm is.
So basically, if a human can figure out a step-by-step method to solve something, a Turing machine can too.
That's the essence of it. It gives us a solid mathematical definition of computable. It tells us what computers can, in principle, do.
Okay, so if the Turing machine defined what is computable, did Turing also explore the flip side, what can't be computed? Were there limits he found?
Oh, yes. That leads directly to one of his most famous and arguably profound results, the halting problem.
The halting problem sounds ominous.
It kind of is, for programmers at least.
Yeah.
Basically, Turing asked, can we create a general algorithm, another program, that can look at any given program in its input and tell us for sure whether that program will eventually stop, halt, or run forever in an infinite loop?
Like the ultimate debugging tool. It tells you if your code is going to crash or just hang.
Exactly. Could we build that perfect predictor? And Turing proved, rigorously, that the answer, no such general algorithm can exist.
It's impossible. Why?
The proof is a bit intricate, involving self-reference, kind of like Gödel's work. But the consequence is huge. It proved that Hilbert's and Scheidung's problem, that dream of a universal truth machine for maths, was unsolvable. There are definite questions that computation simply cannot answer.
So there are fundamental limits. What does that mean practically and philosophically?
Practically, for anyone writing code, it means you can't ever have a perfect tool that guarantees finding all potential infinite loops in every program. You just can't.
That's humbling.
It is. And philosophically, it shattered that dream of complete formal decidability in mathematics. It showed there are inherent unanswerable questions within formal systems, a fundamental undecidability.
And this links to modern computer science.
Absolutely. It's the foundation for complexity theory. After Turing, the question wasn't just can it be computed, but can it be computed efficiently in reasonable time?
Like maybe a Turing machine could solve it, but it would take the lifetime of the universe.
Exactly. And that distinction is crucial. Modern cryptography, for example, relies heavily on problems that are easy to set up, but incredibly hard, computationally expensive to solve, like factoring huge numbers. That practical difficulty stems directly from the theoretical groundwork laid by Turing and the halting problem. It defines the boundary not just of the possible, but of the practical. 3. The imitation game, defining machine intelligence.
Okay, let's move from pure computation theory to something maybe even more provocative. Artificial intelligence. And another landmark Turing contribution.
Right, his 1950 paper, Computing Machinery and Intelligence. This is where he drops that bombshell question.
Can machines think?
Exactly, a question that's fueled decades of research and debate. And in that paper, he proposed his famous test, which he actually called the imitation game.
We know it as the Turing Test. Can you lay out the basic idea?
It's elegant, really. You have a human judge or interrogator communicating remotely, like via text chat, with two hidden participants. Yeah, the judge can't see or hear them. One participant is a human, the other is a computer program. The judge asks questions, has a conversation.
And the goal.
The judge's goal is to figure out which is the human and which is the machine. If the judge can't reliably tell the difference, if the machine can fool the judge a significant portion of the time,
Then the machine passes the test.
then the machine passes the test. Turing even joked about needing a telepathy-proof room, just in case.
So it's about fooling a human through conversation.
Fundamentally, yes. It was his pragmatic way of tackling the can machines think question. Instead of getting lost in defining thinking or consciousness, he said, let's focus on behavior. Can a machine behave in a way that's indistinguishable from a thinking human?
That's the key, isn't it? This behaviorist approach. He wasn't concerned with how the machine worked inside, whether it felt anything or was truly conscious.
Not for the purpose of the test, no. It was all about the observable output, the conversation. If it talks like a human, reasons like a human in conversation, maybe makes jokes like a human, then for practical purposes, in that context, it's exhibiting intelligence.
And this approach, focusing on function over internal state, really influenced AI research, didn't it?
Hugely. It led towards philosophical functionalism, the idea that mind is defined by what it does, not what it's made of.
Yeah.
And it gave early AI a concrete goal. Build programs that can perform tasks, maybe even better than humans, by mimicking the right outputs, without needing to solve the deep mystery of consciousness first.
But the Turing test, it's attracted a lot of criticism over the years, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The debate is fierce and ongoing. Some critics are quite dismissive. They call it bullshit or fundamentally flawed.
Why? What are the main arguments against it?
One big one is that it could be gamed. That a clever program, maybe using a huge database of canned responses or complex rules like tons of if-then statements, could simulate conversation without any real understanding.
Like a sophisticated chatbot tricking you with predictable small talk.
Exactly. Exploiting patterns in how humans converse. Another criticism is its narrowness. Is conversation the only measure of intelligence? What about an AI that drives a car brilliantly but can't chat?
Right, that AI is clearly intelligent in its domain, but would fail the Turing test miserably.
Precisely. So some argue it's not a universal measure of intelligence, especially for specialized AIs.
But there are strong defenses too, right?
Uh,
Especially from people working on artificial general intelligence, AGI.
Yes. Many researchers aiming for AGI, that's AI with human-like broad cognitive abilities, still see the Turing test or something like it as a really valuable benchmark.
Why, if it can be tricked?
Well, the argument is that mimicking the full range of human conversation with its nuance, creativity, humor, empathy, common sense reasoning is an incredibly high bar. It's not just about spitting out facts.
So passing a really good Turing test against a savvy interrogator asking tough questions wouldn't be a simple trick.
Proponents would say no. It would likely require something akin to genuine understanding. They see it as a test of what it means to be human, communicatively, maybe an upper bound. If a machine can consistently fool us, that's a profound achievement. It forces us to question our assumptions about what makes us unique.
And the idea that it's just lots of if-else statements is maybe too simplistic for what a true AGI would be.
I think so. Simple chatbots can fool some people sometimes, sure. But passing a rigorous extended Turing test against experts, that would be, as Turing hinted, a world-shaking discovery. It would mean AI had reached a level of sophistication far beyond simple rule following.
And there's that other twist, too. Could a truly intelligent AI choose not to act human, maybe fail the test deliberately?
That's a fascinating philosophical point. If AGI doesn't share human motivations or communication styles, it might fail the test even if it's super intelligent in other ways. What does intelligence even look like if it's not human-like? The test opens up those deeper questions, too.
So even with all the debate, the criticisms, the Turing test sticks around. It still frames the conversation.
It really does. Despite its flaws, it gives us this intuitive way to grapple with huge questions about machine minds, consciousness, intelligence. It's a benchmark, a thought experiment, a challenge. The fact we're still debating it so fiercely over 70 years later just shows how powerful and enduring Turing's original idea was. 4. Beyond computation. Turing's a surprising dive into biology.
Okay, now for something completely different, but just as mind-bending, Turing's work in biology.
Mathematical biology, yes. It was a less famous part of his legacy, but absolutely pioneering. His 1952 paper, The Chemical Basis of Morphogenesis.
Morphogenesis, what's that?
It's the biological process that causes an organism to develop its shape, how things grow into specific forms.
Like how a leopard gets its spots, or a plant grows leaves in a spiral.
Exactly. How do you get complex patterns and structures emerging from something simple, like a single fertilized egg, which is basically symmetrical? That was the mystery.
And this was seen as, well, almost mystical before, some life force guiding it.
For a long time, yes. There wasn't a good mechanistic explanation. Biologists knew genes were involved, but how did genes translate into physical shape and pattern? Turing wanted a chemical answer.
So he jumps from logic machines to leopard spots. That's quite a leap.
It seems like it, but you can see the connection in his thinking. Looking for simple, underlying rules that generate complex behavior, whether it's computation or biological form.
So what was his biological idea?
He proposed the reaction-diffusion model. He hypothesized these chemical substances, which he called morphogens, literally form generators.
Morphogens, okay.
His idea was that these chemicals would diffuse through tissues, spreading out, but also react with each other chemically. Maybe one chemical activates the production of itself or another, while a second chemical inhibits production.
An activator and an inhibitor.
That's the common modern term for it, yes. Turing showed mathematically that this interplay chemical spreading at different rates and reacting with each other could spontaneously create stable patterns from an initially uniform state.
Spontaneously. Without a detailed blueprint for the pattern itself.
Exactly. Just based on the chemical reaction rates and how fast they diffuse. He showed that tiny random fluctuations which always exist in nature could get amplified by this system, leading to stable spots or stripes or other complex patterns.
So simple physical and chemical laws could create such an effect. No magic needed.
Precisely. It was a powerful argument for a purely mechanistic explanation of biological pattern formation, a huge blow against vitalism.
And he wasn't just doing maths on paper, he was trying to apply this.
Oh, yes. By 1953, he's working with a research student, Bernard Richards, trying to model the patterns on these tiny sea creatures called radiolaria.
Radiolaria, what are they?
Microscopic, single-celled organisms, protozoa. They start roughly spherical, but develop these incredibly intricate skeletons, often shaped like perfect geometric solids, cubes, dodecahedrons covered in spines, really beautiful, complex forms.
And Turing thought his reaction diffusion model could explain how they formed.
He did. Richards programmed the equations onto the Ferranti-Marchi computer at Manchester, a very early, very primitive machine.
Must have been tough going.
Extremely. The computer just spat out numbers. Richards then had to painstakingly plot these numbers by hand onto graph paper to create contour maps, trying to visualize the patterns the equations predicted.
Wow. Hours of manual work for one pattern.
Exactly. But the results were stunning. The patterns Richards drew from the computer output looked remarkably like the detailed drawings of radiolaria made by the naturalist Ernst Haeckel decades earlier. It seemed to work.
That must have been incredibly exciting for them.
It was. But here's the incredibly sad part. Alan Turing died the day before he was scheduled to see these confirming results from Richards.
Oh no, seriously.
Seriously. He never got to see that final validation of his biological theory.
Mhm.
It's just heartbreaking to think about. What else might he have done in that field?
Unbelievable timing. So, given this potential, why did this work get largely ignored for so long? You said almost 40 years.
Yeah, a couple of big reasons. One was practical.
Yeah.
The computers of the time were just too slow and inaccessible for most biologists to really run with Turing's complex equations. It was ahead of the available technology.
You still couldn't easily replicate or extend his simulations?
Right. And the other huge factor was timing. Just a year after Turing's paper, Watson and Crick published the structure of DNA.
The double helix. Changed biology forever.
Completely. The entire focus of biology shifted massively towards genetics, molecular biology, cracking the genetic code. Turing's work on pattern formation, morphogenesis, seemed like a different, less urgent problem at the time. It got overshadowed.
But eventually it came back.
It did. Towards the end of the 20th century, as computers became powerful enough, researchers rediscovered Turing's paper. They could finally run the simulations properly, and it just exploded into a whole field of mathematical biology.
So these activator-inhibitor systems, as they're often called now, what kind of things do they explain today?
A huge range. Things like how hair follicles or feathers are spaced out on skin, how teeth are arranged, the branching patterns in lungs or blood vessels. It provides this fundamental mechanism.
And the spots and stripes.
Yes, and it even helps explain why some animals get spots and others get stripes. It often depends on the size of the tissue field, like the embryo when the pattern is laid down.
Size matters.
It seems so.
Yeah.
The scale affects how the diffusion waves interact. That's why, for example, you generally don't see a striped animal with a spotted tail or vice versa. A cheetah has spots, but its tail is ringed or striped. The maths of reaction diffusion predicts these kinds of constraints. It's amazing.
That is amazing. Simple rules, complex outcomes. And these ideas go even beyond biology now.
They really do. The core concept interacting processes spreading through a medium turns out to be incredibly general. People apply it to geology.
Like sand ripples.
Exactly. Wind is the activator, piling up sand. The ridge then creates a shadow that inhibits sand deposition nearby, creates ripples.
Okay, makes sense. What else?
Urban studies, crime hotspots. One crime might act as an activator, making an area seem vulnerable, attracting more crime. Policing acts as an inhibitor. You can model how these hotspots form and persist. It links to things like the broken window theory.
Wow, from biology to criminology.
Even speculative things like patterns of popularity. Why does everyone crowd around the Mona Lisa in the Louvre? Maybe there's a social reaction diffusion process at play. The applicability seems incredibly broad. Outro.
What an absolutely mind-expanding journey. Alan Turing. His genius was just so multifaceted: mathematics, logic, code-breaking, computer science, AI, even biology.
He really bridged so many fields, laying down these fundamental theories that, as we've seen, are still echoing everywhere in our world today.
Yeah.
That deep interconnectedness of ideas.
It really shows how universal principles can be uncovered by someone willing to look beyond conventional boundaries.
Absolutely. And his legacy leaves us with this really provocative thought, doesn't it? What other complex systems around us, maybe social dynamics, economic trends, natural phenomena, what else might secretly be governed by these kinds of simple underlying rules? Rules like computation or reaction diffusion that Turing was among the first to really grasp.
Are there simple, computable rules hidden beneath the complexity we see everywhere?
His work encourages us to keep looking for them, to believe that deep truths often lie in elegant, universal principles.
We have definitely only scratched the surface of Alan Turing's incredible mind and impact in this deep dive. His work defining machine intelligence, the nature of computation, predicting biological patterns, it truly set the stage for so much of our modern world.
He was undeniably a foundational pillar.
If you want to explore more, you can find this full deep dive and discussions on other crucial thinkers in the AI Visionaries, the Pioneers playlist on YouTube. Check it out.
There's always more to learn.
We certainly look forward to exploring more fascinating minds with you in our next deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and share. It really helps us grow. See you next time.